Ramos and his team were detained in Venezuela during an interview with Nicolas Maduro. Now, the allegations indicate that they were detained following questioning, a line of questioning that Maduro did not like, and also the fact that Jorge Ramos had showed a video that Maduro did not like. Now, we're gonna pull up the video in question right now and keep our mics up because I wanna talk through it. But essentially the video shows young Venezuelan men eating garbage, like eating food that they're finding through a garbage truck. And I think it's an important video for someone like Nicolas Maduro to see. It's not as if he doesn't know that his people are going hungry, but he clearly did not appreciate being shown this video. He didn't appreciate the line of questioning from Jorge Ramos, and as a result, they were immediately detained. Now, luckily, they were eventually let go and they were deported back to the United States. And according to what Jorge Ramos had to say, he tried to block the video with his hand and he stood up and walked away, okay? And then he also says, they robbed us of our work, they robbed us of our equipment. They don't want the world to see what happens when their leader is questioned. So what Jorge Ramos is responding, is saying there is, their cameras, the footage, everything that they worked on had been confiscated and they have not been able to get that footage back. But luckily they were let go. Ramos reportedly called the leader a dictator and a murderer. And that's what BuzzFeed is reporting.
Okay. So if you want to prove that you're not a dictator, arresting a reporter in the middle of an interview is not a good way of doing it. So word to the wise. So this is exactly what we've been telling you guys. It's not a black and white world. The American government is trying to do a coup. I think that's absolutely clear. I don't support intervention in Venezuela, but it's also clear that Maduro is not a good guy. And I know it's a tiny percentage, but there is some percentage on the left who are like, no, he's made of rainbows and rides on unicorns, right?
I don't really understand where that comes from.
I don't know why. I don't know why. Like, no, you know what? I do know why. It's an overreaction to the mainstream media propaganda.
And I get it. I get that. And you should 100% be skeptical of the mainstream media narrative of anything political, period. So I get that. But at the same time, I think you do a disservice to the people of Venezuela, the people who have taken to the streets. I mean, look at the protests in Venezuela. Do you think those are all actors? Do you think those are all people that were put there by the State Department in the United States? No, those are real Venezuelans who are suffering, who are going hungry, who are really dealing with the negative consequences and the ramifications of Maduro's actions. And I think that, again, you do a disservice to those people when you pretend as if there isn't a humanitarian crisis there. So look, this is not saying, oh no, the United States needs to get involved. Of course, I mean, I think the United States should get involved, but not in the way that they're planning on doing it, which is of course a coup. But to make excuses for Maduro, I think is incredibly irresponsible.
So let's talk about two other parts of this. So Jorge Ramos, no one would argue that Jorge Ramos, I mean, I don't know, unless there's unless you don't know any of the facts, that Jorge Ramos is somehow a puppet of the Trump administration. Okay, you can say Trump administration is trying to do a coup. They've been coordinating with Guaido all along, right? Guaido randomly raising his hand going, oh yeah, I'm now the interim leader and I will take the assets abroad of the Venezuelan people. And John Bolton coming on TV and saying, oh, the American oil companies want the oil in Venezuela. All of that is absolutely true. But if you think Jorge Ramos, who has a very famous feud with Donald Trump, is somehow trying to help John Bolton and Donald Trump, that's preposterous. There's no way that's true, okay? So he can't, it appears by all accounts that he can't stand Donald Trump. Donald Trump definitely can't stand Jorge Ramos. And so they're not coordinating. And look at what Maduro does. If Maduro wanted to say, hey, Jorge, you're showing me this video, but I don't know where this video is coming from. I don't know if it's propaganda. I don't know where you got it from. And I reject the premise. Well, okay, that would be an interesting conversation. It'd be an interesting interview. But his instinct is grab the camera. So one, you hide the evidence. Two, it's a theft. Three, it's again, it's a move that a non-democratic person would do, is to detain the reporter.
Yeah.
It also means you don't want to answer the question, but his instinct is mainly, no, we're not having a democracy here.
Yeah.
What we're having is me exercising power.
So, look, I haven't shared this with the audience yet, but I think at this point it's important to, because there is a lot of propaganda coming out of Venezuela. I have family members, believe it or not, in Venezuela, and it's incredibly difficult to get in touch with them, but the little communication that we've had with them, they're desperate, they're hungry. The situation on the ground is real. And I just think that, pretending as if their suffering is something that's completely made up by the mainstream media here or by the government here is turning a blind eye and completely dismissing what they're going through. So I wanna, as soon as I get more information on what's going on with them personally, I wanna report back to you, because that's the only, in my opinion, legitimate source that's not biased, that's not full of propaganda that I can rely on. But I can tell you that the people of Venezuela are suffering. Maduro is not innocent, but that's not to say that we're supportive of what the Trump administration is attempting to do there. So
okay, now by the way, just reported right before we went on air, a Telemundo correspondent has also been kidnapped. Daniel Garrido was picked up at 6 a.m. in the morning by masked gunmen that forced him into a vehicle and put a hood over his head. And why did they do that? He was trying to cover the Venezuelan government's detainment of Jorge Ramos, who's from Univision, a different station, okay? And they questioned him, apparently, they questioned Garrido for 6 hours, and they also seized his equipment and would not return it. This is not what a president does in a democracy. So there are, as we've said from day one in this story, there are no good guys here, and it is not a black and white issue. And it's easy to fall into camps. Oh, I'm with America, we're awesome. We have no interest in their oil. We care about humanitarian crisis, although we're aiding and abetting the worst humanitarian crisis ever or currently on the planet in Yemen with our buddies in Saudi Arabia. Oh, we don't like dictators who do bad things to reporters, but we support Mohammed bin Salman, who chopped up a reporter. So the American side is filled with propaganda and hypocrisy, but Maduro's side is clearly not representing the people. That election was a fraud. Anyone who's saying, no, hey, I don't know, hey, maybe he did win. I mean, there are apologists out there going, no, all of his political opponents should have been put in jail.
Oh, come on.
Come on, okay. If you want to believe that, there's a lot of things you could believe, okay? And now I'm sure that there'll be conspiracy theories about how Ramos is a secret right winger, okay? But it's just not true. You do not do a democracy by locking up all of your political opponents. That's Putin 101. On the go? Don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.